Hello and welcome back to A Better World. This is your host, Mitchell J. Rabin, and I'm very glad you're joining us again today. Today we're going to have another very interesting show as we plummet the depths of different dimensions that happen to be existing parallel to this reality, because we have with us a medium, a psychic, clairvoyant, clairaudient, Sandy Guarnotta from Long Island. She's a school psychologist during the day, and in the evening she works with people in a very precise way where she's able to tune in to these other dimensions and receive communication from what we refer to as the other side, but essentially it's another dimension or two, and bring forth information, communications that really help people here in physical form, in embodied form, as we say. So it's really a very great pleasure to have Sandy with us today, speaking about this really special gift that of course we all have, but it's not all that well developed in most of us. And when we find somebody in whom it is well developed, it's always a real pleasure. So good to have you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, how did you first discover this inborn talent inside you? Where were you? What happened?
For me, it's something that I've had since childhood. Very early on, I was able to communicate. I would see angels in my room. I would talk to them.
At what age did you become aware of that?
As young as about 4 or 5, probably even younger than that, but in terms of remembering it, I was very young. And I continued on, and then the group that would just come in would just grow. It would be all sorts of angels and what I now know to be saints and presence of different deities and different existences. And that kind of continued.
And you know that it wasn't just from reading lots of like storybooks or
definitely not.
Lots of cartoons.
The stuff I saw and communicated with wasn't in storybooks, definitely not. No.
There was no Mickey Mouse.
No. Definitely not. No.
But in later life you were able to identify the beings that you saw.
Yes.
Because of your greater knowledge, etc.
Definitely, and also as I began to really do this later on in life, they identify themselves when they come present. In voice, telepathically, as well as by vision. They identify themselves, which a lot of them are common visions that we're aware of that are based in truth.
Can you, Sandy, invoke one or the other by your own volition?
Absolutely.
You can.
Every session that I do, whether it be healing or a private reading or meditation, I do an invocation every session, and I invoke those who I want to serve and continue to serve.
And to be present for that particular person, that client, that...
Quite often when I'm doing a reading, you cannot invoke specifically someone by name, but what you can do is invoke that anyone who is there in necessity for the highest good of the individual, the client, those who have crossed, relatives, or of other presence, higher vibration, come through and speak. So not specifically by name.
So you cannot then say, I invoke Jesus the Christ, as an example.
Yes,
or
that can be
Abraham,
done.
or Moses. It can be done.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you can invoke, in a sense, per person to the party.
Yes. What I meant by that is when you're working specifically and doing an invocation, you can invoke the other realm. Specifically those that have crossed just specific relatives and specific names, that cannot be done. That's very difficult.
I'm
but
talking
a higher
about
level,
the
absolutely.
deities,
absolutely. Absolutely.
The angels, archangel realms.
Absolutely.
You can invoke.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I say to the party, but people tend to get very, very serious in discussions of this sort because we're dealing with the past.
Yeah.
I mean, like those who have passed, and so everybody, becomes like,
stiff,
buttoned down,
stiff.
right? And yet, it is said by all metaphysical traditions that life is to be a loving, joyful celebration.
Yes.
Now, when somebody passes, by and large, people are not dancing in the streets Although most people who have passed said, please dance on the streets in my honor, in my name. You know, but most people, you know, we feel sad and grief, you know, and that's an appropriate
Yes.
reaction also.
Yes.
Anyway, so I was just kind of playing a little bit, but not because it's not all very real, just because I was just trying to invoke levity in the situation.
You know, I found that one of the greatest things that I really feel is to be commended in this work is working with families or even just individuals who have had a loss, particularly when you're dealing with people who have lost loved ones via suicide or very, very quick traumatic accident.
Yeah.
I've, you know, over 10 years, hundreds and hundreds of readings, and the emotion that is offered when the communication comes through. Every single spirit offers, I'm okay, you need to know I'm okay. I'm in peace, there's love, I'm okay. Every single spirit, even the most traumatic, torturous type of death that you can imagine. I've you know, worked with the cops in terms of, you know, seeking people. I've worked with the cops in terms of murder cases, selected cases that they've been really, you know, invoked
Be
by
like a
assistance.
psychic detective.
Yes. And even in those cases, what comes through is, I am at peace. After that, then comes the validation of who I am. This is how it happened. You know, but it's always initially that this existence on the other side is beyond anything we can absolutely possibly feel of love and peace here. And it's always, I'm okay. Please be happy, I'm okay.
So, in other words, when we become free of the physical, corporal form, there is a freedom and a joy and bliss that accompanies that feeling of freedom.
I think
Would
what,
you say that?
yes, I would. And I think what I've learned is that when the soul crosses, there are about 5 to 8 different levels on the other side that the soul goes through before its completion of crossing. And in those levels, the soul has given almost a second opportunity to kind of really work on the lessons it's here to work on.
That it's here to work on.
That it's here. We incarnate to work on
Okay.
lessons, absolutely. To free ourselves of emotional blockages, manifestations of disease. When a soul crosses, it's given a second chance, and it's at a much more expedited rate. And after that point, when the soul goes through the levels, that's when it really, really experiences tremendous lightning vibration. And that is the love and peace that they speak of.
Got it. You know, the Tibetans in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and I know you haven't read much, and that's one of the things you say, that you read a lot of books on psychology to get a PhD.
Oh, way too many. Way too
When
many.
it comes to the domain of the metaphysical, you've in a sense made a point of getting your understanding and knowledge from the other dimension directly, which
Yes.
is very,
I was
very
asked specifically, and I know I've spoken with you about this, specifically when really gifted and moving forth a gift, the other side literally asked me to read nothing. That they would take me to the other side and they would communicate and teach me, so that my word was, delivered word was really via their
direct,
reception.
exactly. You know, it's
Yeah.
funny, Sandy, because when I've been in particularly enlightened states that have been sustained for some time, which has happened, and then, come back to earth, but during those times of sustenance, I've looked at my own bookshelves and I've gone, what do I need that for? I don't need those. I have it. It's here.
Yes.
And when I journey back to my earthly, corporeal self, I go, what was that book on Zen I was looking for? Because it feeds me something I was able to feed myself directly or be fed. It's just interesting.
Yes. People, many times people will come to psychics, seeking answers. And one of the things that I teach people, because I believe a reading should be educational.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's a service to the other side. I mean, that's what raises vibration. That's what changes the world. You change individually, you heal globally, and that's what I
By
believe
all
in.
means.
And I teach people, not only in the meditations and the classes I do, but even in the personal readings, I teach them. everyone's psychic, everyone's has an innate gift, everyone has their answers. You come with a soul retention, a soul memory. Your answers are within. Everything you seek is within. You don't have to go to a psychic to get your answers. And what I do in a reading, via assistance from the other side, is kind of facilitate. It's a facilitation for the individual to be shown a little bit more strongly, these are the lessons you're here to learn. That maybe they couldn't see on their own.
Or we doubt, we doubt.
We doubt
And
our
that's
gift. We
painful. And so someone like yourself provides a very valuable role by helping people trust what they're feeling.
Yes, and I find one of the most important things that I do in classes specifically, and I think it's very helpful, is to teach people to trust. The bottom level is intuition. Trust the intuition. And as you do that and you continue to practice, what happens next is the psychic gift kicks in. And then you just keep raising through the gift, the different levels of the gift. But what's important is to really teach people to trust themselves, trust the other side. Because there are no errors if you trust. Everything is as it should be if you trust. Fear and doubt, we all have it. It is our biggest block of our truest potential on a soul level, and to really seek our soul mission.
I wanted to come back to something I began asking about, which is, I mentioned the Tibetan Book of the Dead. And in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, there are what is called the bardo, and the layers, the levels, toward what's referred to at the end of it, the great luminosity, which the soul is aspiring to. And it's exactly fear and doubt which act as the stumbling blocks to the ascendance, the ascension to the great reunification with the all, if you will. So I wonder if those levels that are described in the Tibetan Book of the Dead equate with, it sounds like they do, the levels that you've been instructed exist or have seen exist.
Yes, it does
with
sound
those
that way.
who have become disembodied.
It does sound that way, because I know in those levels, again, like as I've been shown it literally when I've been taken on the other side via my own near-death experiences and just through my meditative states, what they show me is that at each level, the soul is given yet another chance to confront the fear and doubt, almost as if they're still in human existence.